All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of 3CM through Comic Money with the Comic Contributor Chats. We are so stoked this week. We have JG Jones on with us. We've been emailing back and forth. I'm so excited to have him on with us. We are blown away. We forgot how many amazing books that he's done that are in our collections. I mean, you're talking about cover tunes down here below me and Dollar Bin Digging here and Usual Suspects, and we all went, oh, crap, we have mentioned his books over and over again.
Yeah.
And there's some of our favorite books that we go, why isn't this worth more? Well, this is a great run. And we're going to talk to him about some of his inspirations, what he has going on, and all that different stuff like we normally do. But JG, thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yes, thank you.
Great to have you with us.
One of the things that I realized digging through your immense list of books that you've done, I couldn't really, and this is my fault, I probably just didn't dig it deep enough. What book did you start with? Or where did you start? Did you start in Valiant? Did you start in DC? Did you start in Marvel?
Further back than Valiant. Well, Valiant was up and running. After Jim Shooter left Valiant, he started a little company called Defiant.
Okay.
Short-lived, didn't last too long, but I drew a few pages of a book with a friend of mine writing, and I think I got 9 or 10 pages done and went to the New York Comic Con back when they held it in the middle of winter. And it sounds like one of those old dad's tales, but we literally, because there's no subway on the west side of town, had to walk through 2 feet of snow.
Wait, was that like 75? No, that was what, mid-90s?
Yeah, I think 93 maybe, something like that.
We had a guy.
The West Side Highway over there. There's no room for a subway, really. You got the
yeah. There's you're walking, you know.
Basically, yeah. Was it over there at the Javits Center?
Yeah. I didn't even know who Jim Shooter was at the time, and my buddy kind of nudged me in the ribs, and he goes, show this dude. So Jim looked at my pages, and basically the first guy I ever showed my work to hired me on the spot. So
that's really cool. I mean, I understand why. But
I was terrible then. He just took a flyer. Maybe he was desperate. I don't know.
And that is something, like, one of the things you said you want to talk about was the longevity. And we've talked to 2 or 3 artists now who talk about they got their start by showing up at San Diego Con or showing up at New York and walking in with their little stack of papers and just begging someone to look at it. We talked to John Boyd Myers, who did the same thing. He with San Diego Con a few times. I think Kari Andrews said he did something similar. And like, just go that's lost now, I think, with the new guys. Because you don't do that. You do it through Instagram. You do it through but how was the pressure of going to sit in New York Comic Con with your little stack going, please like me? Of course, you had a good story. You didn't have that go back and try again. But I'm sure you have people you've worked with that say, oh, no, it was hell. I didn't want to do that.
Well, I had been living in New York trying to be a fine art painter.
Mm.
My day job 3-4 days a week was working at a weekly paper. And that's where I met my friend who was a writer at the paper that I wrote the books with. Wednesday was the day we'd go down to the comic book shop, you know, so I pretty much had a thing going on, but I wasn't really happy with where I was. So I got really addicted to all the stuff that was coming out in the early 90s. I mean, Hellboy had just dropped in a John Byrne book, Next Men or something like that.
Yeah.
14 or 20, 21's the official, but 14 we found out he's on the back of a movie poster.
That's right.
In color.
I almost forgot. Stuff, Cadillacs and dinosaurs and Cenozoic and all that stuff. And I was like, oh, wouldn't this be a fun way to make a living if I could pull it off? So I just took a flyer and did it. And it was pretty rough for a few years.
So, because I think Pete, you dropped this in?
Yeah, I think this was the title.
Is this what you said the first book was?
Yeah, yep. That is the first book I ever drew.
It's a Dark Dominion. So that Is that one of those like, oh man, there's signed copies out there that are going to be worth a bunch because Dark Dominion, J.G. Jones original art?
Well,
No.
Plasm.
You probably buy a handful of them out of the back issues for 20.
Well, we talked to someone who did Rune with Barry Windsor Smith, and that's another one of those books that like people that loved it when it came out, but now it's just fills those dollar bins. So.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was the thing that it drew me to the stands. I mean, that's one of the few books that drew me back. It's odd. I don't even own a single copy of it now, but it's just one of those books. And the '90s were weird for all of us. I mean, I think we all fell for something in the '90s, and then had a whole short box full.
So them being that many leftovers because they made so many back then, like just printing wise, like they printed everything a ton.
Yeah, so the value of it was increased. They thought they were printing money, but the secret is you keep printing.
Yeah. So you went from doing those, but to be honest, that's not where I remember you from. I remember just some gorgeous books that you did for DC. That's where really, when I think through what someone did, and then you did Marvel. Did you do Marvel before DC?
Yeah, I did Marvel before DC, but before that, I did another stop with Jim at Broadway Comics, and that closed down. And I was basically without work, and I ran into my buddy Tony Bedard on the street, who was doing some writing, and he was working for Crusade Comics, and he goes, "Come on, I'm going to this party for that Billy Tucci's having. I'll introduce you." And by the end of the night of drinking with Billy Tucci, I had myself a job.
Having met Billy Tucci, I can only imagine what his parties are like.
Yeah,
that guy is something else, man.
Before Joe had started working for Marvel Nights, creating Marvel Nights. So we all hung out at the same bars and everything, and I just kind of got to know them. And occasionally Jimmy would pull me aside and say, "Let me see what you're doing. Let me see what you're doing." I guess he didn't feel I was quite ready. And then when they got Marvel Nights up and running, they hired me immediately to draw the Black Widow book. And yeah, there she is.
Yep.
That was my first big, kaboom. Even though I'd been working for well over 7 years, I think, at that point.
But that's one of those books that I know I've picked up multiple times. All three of us have picked it up. We've chased, especially this series. And there's a couple of the Black Widow little mini series, but I did love this one particularly. But another one that you did, I guess, close to it, or this one here.
Yep.
You got to create a character.
Yeah.
So
Grant Morrison brought this script in, and basically it was his idea for an alternate Marvel universe was going to kick off there. And I think that's what ended up being the whole Civil War saga. Even though he didn't write that, it was his idea to have like a separate Marvel universe with all the same characters basically, but different storylines and things going on.
That's really, I didn't even think about that. Like, yeah, I just remember like some of these going back and rereading them and like, okay, like because I think we actually have, it's one of those, we got so many things you did. It's hard to pull out all your different. Goodness, how dare you?
Yeah, seriously. For me, it was always the Wonder Woman covers that got me going.
But you also did interiors, which is fascinating as well, because we don't get that a lot. Like these days, it's all about covers, like the actual interior work,
especially for the painters. Especially for the painters like you. I mean, you just don't. It just doesn't seem like those two things would, unless you're doing fully painted interiors like Dave McKean did or something like that.
Yeah,
or Sienkiewicz.
I did a book that not many people know about that's completely painted, but we'll get to that down the road.
Ooh,
now we're like, really?
Man. Every week I spend my money on this show. Man, one of these weeks I'm not going to buy anything. Not this week.
Well, I did throw it up here, but here's an example from your Marvel Boy run. I'm not sure which issue this is.
I think it's in 1.
Okay.
I pulled up issue 1.
And then here's an example, and this is more so people watching can see just how great like the interiors were. This is gorgeous.
Oh,
from Black Widow.
Oh yeah, Black Widow.
Yeah, especially with Yelena Belova in there too.
Yeah, I mean
that is amazing.
Which and that's part of the reason these got renewed interest is because of the Black Widow movie and Yelena becoming into it, and just because you were instrumental in just creating her look. I mean, along with I know she'd been created in I don't think it was your first issue because she actually came out in Humans with Jay Lee issue number 5 or whatever. But just creating this character.
Yeah, we were all working up in the room for Marvel Night, giving them like this little tiny penthouse room on the roof. So they wanted to. We had already started work on the book, and they said, "Let's just tease it by dropping her in Jay's book." All the ideas in a lot of those books were kind of weaving in and out of each other to make their own little universe of books.
So was that with Axel? Was he the one sort of sitting in the room?
Yeah. Axel was sort of babysitting that whole thing.
It's definitely your look on the character that everyone knows, in my opinion.
Yeah. So I mean,
have a unique style, but
definitely,
it's only unique at that time compared to everything else that was going on. I think a lot of my style was coming out of the 70s stuff that I had been reading, like the magazines, the Warren publications, heavy metal, the things that were a little more rendered. I was basically, in my mind, just trying to bring that style up into current comic books, which had been kind of all image style for a long time. And I basically couldn't draw that way. It would have been nice. I probably would have made a lot of money, but I didn't draw that way.
Did you have any specific influences?
Oh my God, my influences are everything under the sun, everything you can pull out. I'm like an omnivore. I just inhale all that stuff. But I can give you a name that I don't think anybody's going to think of, and that's Mike Plug.
Ooh,
nice.
Okay, yeah, no, I would not have thought that.
I was obsessed with those old Planet of the Apes magazines that Marvel had put out, and he had a little black and white series in the back of that book that he had done wash tones on. So I was doing black and white pen and ink with wash tones on my stuff because I was like, let's go Mike Plug, let's do it.
Not to mention the beautiful painted covers on all those magazines, which of course would be what you would end up doing, beautiful painted covers, really in a similar sort of vein as those. So it's kind of strange how that happened.
I loved all of those Warren and the Marvel series. They, like you said, the Conans had the great painted covers. They had Doc Savage for a while.
Which is, you ended up doing Doc Savage?
Baby, that's my guy.
and you can tell with these covers that, I mean, sadly, Doc Savage never took off again in the same way, but the passion that I can see it because the enthusiasm, these covers are beautiful. And they just never.
Issues too.
Say that again.
I wrote those issues too.
Yeah.
Oh wow! See, and I don't think I guess I can read
top billing, man. Top billing.
Yeah. So I need to look a little closer when like I said, you have such a wide raft of stuff. These two below me are more the experts on J.G. Jones. I was more stoked because of these books that you did. I mean, you brought in one of my favorite characters right here. So you brought in Batwoman. I mean, of course, that's not the cover. This is the cover that we love.
Oh yes,
right next to me.
Yeah.
Oh, you found a virgin copy.
Yeah,
of
this
nice.
is no. We don't want to adulterate this. We want the beauty right here.
We want the art.
That is such a badass cover, man. That foot coming right at you.
So it's the crook.
Oh, it's there's just so much going on in this cover. And I think it was like a 1 for 10, and this is the first appearance. Well, actually, this is the big cover from the Detective run. Just so gorgeous that you did. Of course, then I didn't realize you had done the week 11, which is like the first cover appearance of her as Batwoman or whatever. So we got to see Marvel Boy. You got to create some of these big characters that we still go crazy for. Like, I mean, she's had her own TV show. Did you watch that TV show and go, I helped create her look?
Everybody that if they're lucky enough to be around the business for a while, they're going to have some characters that they, if not designed, redesigned, or you want to have your hand in. You want to have a piece of the history. So yeah, it's always kind of nice when your stuff shows up elsewhere long after you're done playing with it.
Did you feel like you had to reinvent yourself every 5 or 10 years to stay relevant, or do you feel like people were pretty interested in you staying with your style the whole way through? Because I feel like there's a little bit of both. I think that there's definitely, you look at a cover and you say that's Jones, no doubt about it. Doesn't matter what decade it is. But then there's obviously like little nuanced changes throughout time. Did you do those purposefully, or did that just sort of evolve organically over time?
It's kind of organic. It just depends on what sort of thing I'm interested in at the time. Like when I did 52, the 52 covers, that's a long haul of covers.
Yeah.
So I didn't stick with any one plan from one to the next. I figured that my style would show through, but I had a lot of different interests in old illustration, 70s album covers, Renaissance painting, anything that I thought would work for that particular issue. Some of them are really design heavy, which I like to do stuff like that a lot of times. People like Dave Johnson are so good at that really graphic level of design. Sometimes you just want to bite off a little bit of that apple and chew on it too. So, it was just whatever I'm feeling at the time. Sometimes I'll even do that for a whole series. I did some JLA covers, I think about 4 or 5 years ago. And those were all really more about the design of the cover than the illustration quality.
I love, if this is the ones you're talking about, I went and bought like every one of these strictly because of the cover, like because of what you did. They were gorgeous. This is the only image I grabbed, but there's the one with Batman walking through the snow, and like just the way you used negative space was amazing to me. You made you could tell everything was on purpose, even though it was white. Like you chose to leave it white, and there's a reason why.
Well, I had that same feeling on the final Crisis books too. Is that there's oh my gosh, oh man, can we just pray to that for a second? That's incredible.
No,
that's my favorite. That's my favorite cover of yours right there by far. But I mean,
ominous with that light coming down. You don't know. What's
gosh, it's gorgeous. It is perfect.
Good.
It is perfect. It is. That's one of those books I buy every time I see it. I don't care how many copies I have, because I want a perfect one. Eventually, I want to make sure. It's ridiculous, but I mean, it's just the way it is. When you latch on to your favorite, that is my favorite cover of yours.
Yeah, well, that entire run. But that's when you pull up that run, like you said. We find it all the time, except for this issue. This is usually the one issue that you won't find that in the Darkseid one, because that Darkseid one's just so awesome. The colors, the way you did the purples and blues. The way you pulled that off, but
Wonder Woman could be tough too.
True. Okay, maybe they're all hard because we all geek out and we pick them up and go, I don't know what I'm going to do with it, but I want a complete set, and I want the perfect complete set of this JG set.
Because it shows off the art so nicely. So I feel like so few times does the layout of a cover really accentuate the art. Usually ruins it. But in this case, I always like the way they were laid out with sort of the vertical rather than horizontal stuff going on. It just draws your eye a little better. So this series, for whatever reason, sticks out to me every single time I find it. But
a lot of it goes down to the art director, who was Mark Chiarella for all those years. He and I sat down and talked about how can we make these covers look completely different than anything else on the shelves. And decided to just go with a big iconic image and don't even worry about the logo. We'll just work the logo. I don't know if you've noticed, but in the early issues, the logo is very solid and it disintegrates over time until it's almost not there.
I don't think I noticed that it did that. I noticed that they were darker, and like now I'm saying, now I need to pull all 7 images up and put them side by side to see
the first one.
That's all Mark Chiarella's idea, because he's always thinking.
It was a timeless idea because they still stand out. I mean, amidst all the other creative ideas that publishers have done over the last decade, those books still pop off the shelf when you see them. So,
and you did
bravo,
the interiors
gentlemen.
for this too? Did you do the insides as well?
I was doing the interiors, and that's when I really started. The illness started to show up, even though I was not diagnosed yet. I had this rare blood cancer called polycythemia vera, and basically your body just makes too many blood products, so too many platelets, too many red cells, too many white cells, and my blood ended up being so thick that it couldn't carry oxygen properly.
Oh man!
I was passing out at the desk, sleeping for hours. It's like, I'm just going to put my head down here for a second, then I would come back and finish this. I'd wake up, it'd be the middle of the night. So I ended up, even though I didn't know what was going on, I just kept getting further and further behind. So I was doing 2 covers an issue painted, and it was a 30 or 32 pages an issue of pencils and inks. And I was just burning the candle at the ends, and it all blew up on me. So luckily,
how do you even do that? How do you even do that? Not sick. I mean, I don't even know how you could possibly accomplish that in any lifetime.
Well, it blows relationships out of the water.
Yeah. I imagine it must.
It definitely can be a strain, but there are times in your career when you really want to make a statement book. You want to do something that's like, wow, look at this. This dude did this thing. Can you believe it? And for me, unfortunately, it kind of, all the wheels fell off halfway through, but it wasn't from lack of trying, that's for sure.
Yeah. I think you'll probably be happy to know that it's not the way it looks from our end. I mean,
no.
we look at some of these sets of books, these runs of books, even if you didn't do the whole run, just the chunk of it. For instance, the Final Crisis books, or your Wonder Woman run, or something that's a little more lengthy. I mean, this whole group, you find that in a box, and you're like, "This is the Jones set right here," and that's substantial, especially when you think about the fact that they're all painted. I mean, it's astounding to me.
I was thrilled that they were letting me paint, because that was sort of my background before I got into comics. And it's something I continue to paint covers whenever they would let me and pay me for it. But I really loved that run on Wonder Woman. I was terrified because I was following Adam Hughes's great run on that book.
This is a good place to go. If you're going to follow Hughes, that's a good place to go.
I said I must be the stupidest guy in comics to follow. But what was it? A year and a half, almost 2-year run.
That's I don't know the exact amount of issues, but that's about right. Yeah.
And I was doing Wanted at the same time, I remember, as a big chunk of that Wonder Woman series.
Now, did you get to decide on who you modeled some of the characters' looks after? Like, was it your decision or Millar's, the M&M?
Mark writes in his scripts, this is so-and-so. He casts like he's doing the movie.
Gotcha.
Like, okay, I can do that.
So who is this supposed to be?
Halle Berry.
That's okay. That's what I thought. I was like, okay, I don't want to jump in a gun and then go, oh wait, no, that's not Catwoman. Halle Berry Catwoman, that is. But yeah, no, I mean, and that's, you got to, like, when we're going through the 2000s, you did some of the iconic covers that we pick up every time we see them, and it's starting to realize, like, man, I didn't realize you did this one and this one, because did you? I think I'm right. You did these too.
Yeah. I did 18 of the Why the Last Man covers.
That's just, those covers are. I mean, I when I look through them now, I wasn't a huge fan of the big white, the white little bar where the Why the Last Man is.
Yeah,
but the painted part is awesome.
Like cut into my art.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's annoying.
This is one.
Well, Vertigo had, because you were working on
I love this one.
the Knockout book during that time too, right?
Yeah.
Took over for Chiodo, or I forget who you took over for, but
yeah, that book was a lot of fun.
Yeah, there's some really fun covers in that series.
The great thing about that series for me personally was there were no rules. I mean, the covers only tangentially touched on whatever was going on in the book. It's just like, make it fun, make it cool.
Draw what you want.
Yeah. Well, there was a couple, like, I'm not even sure if they're yours, but I just remember seeing like the Wizard of Oz. Like, it was like, hey, I'm just gonna do a movie theme. I don't even know, as long as it has the characters, and I'm just like, it was so much fun just to flip through, because like occasionally you'll come across a run. Now it's near impossible now to find a run of Y the Last Man, but there's a time period where you could find them, and it was always great to see the different covers. And knowing that you did some of them and everything like that. Like that Spaceman's just gorgeous. I pick it up whenever I can find it.
I never see that one anymore. It's always gone.
The first one I would never see because it's the first one
that I painted with acrylics instead of my usual watercolor for comics, just because it's fast and I know it really well. I know what I need to do. But I wanted that Spaceman cover to just be, have a little bit more meat, like that oil painting look to it. So.
The texture of the material on the suit it looks like a photograph. It's insane to me. That's so good.
And they let me get rid of that white bar by across the visor.
Yeah, and now that you said that you did acrylic and this is watercolor, I can tell the difference. Like, until you said that, because just how vibrant the colors are on this cover versus the other cover. I mean, both covers are great, but yeah, you accomplish that by just switching materials. Like, I mean, that's the amazing thing too.
Yeah, it gives it a little bit more of a solidity that watercolors has a little more of an ephemeral finish to it.
More muted. Yeah.
Yeah.
How big do you work your originals?
Well, it's changed over the years. I think when I was doing Y the Last Man and Codename Knockout, I was working really large, but I had a larger scanner then. I always just worked to the size of my scanner. So now I think I'm working about 11 by 17 usually.
Oh, okay.
For painted covers. It gives me a little room to run, but
that's still small though for the amount of detail that you're accomplishing in those. I mean, overall, in my opinion. What do I know? I'm just thinking if I were to even attempt that, which would be a big mistake, that I would want to work as big as possible to try to. But yeah, that's crazy.
So there's one book that when I look at all the different covers that you've done, there's one series that you did that reminds me more of when you talked about graphic design.
Yep.
How did you get in?
That we get back to that I painted. Yeah.
How did you get to here? Like, this is just not you from what we've seen of everything else. Like this, and it's a 4-issue story?
Yeah. Well, the idea with the covers was I really love those old late 20s, early 30s WPA poster style.
Okay, now I see it, yeah.
So the color palette's just really limited. It's like 2 or 3 colors, and the drawing is really graphic with these little stippled transitions. To imitate that sort of silk screen style.
Yeah.
So you did this with Mark Waid, like you and him like wrote and drew, like, or
yeah, we wrote it together, and he did the script, and I painted the whole thing. Because I wasn't going to let Alex Ross get away with that his whole career being out there.
I wanted to say that about 10 minutes ago, and I said, no, don't do that. I said,
But also, more than that, when I first got interested in having a career in comics, I was looking at people like Kent Williams and John J. Muth and those guys that did those beautifully painted books Pratt was a huge hero of mine. And I sort of sat down and I tried to decide which direction am I going to go here. If I want to make a living, I need to just draw straight comics straight. But when I'd been in long enough that I'd sort of established a name and everything, I was like, okay, now I want to bring back some of these other skills and desires, really, because I just love paint and that sort of just tasty quality. It's like food to me, you know, and carve out with a paintbrush instead of drawing with pen and pencil.
Well, it definitely adds a depth and texture that you there's no other way to get it. Maybe artificially with computer coloring these days, you could get a little bit there, but it's just not the same. And I don't know, I don't know the ins and outs of the difference between digital media and physical media. But to me, I feel like for the most part, let's say 90% of the time, I can look at a piece and go, that's clearly done in real life. I mean, the depth it's not possible to achieve that really any other way.
Well, just get more imperfections, which give it character when it's,
done by exactly. I love digital art. I really do. I'm a fan of a lot of really good digital painters and especially people who design for film. Just do some gorgeous, gorgeous work. And when I was getting my stem cell transplant, I was in the hospital for 6 weeks, and I was like, well, I can't paint or draw here, so what am I going to do? I had my laptop with me, and I just started teaching myself Procreate in the hospital.
Okay.
And I got out, and I was like, well, let me see if I can do some of this digital painting for a cover. And I did a cover for a Star Wars book right after I got out of the hospital.
Oh crap! You're talking to the Star Wars experts down here, going,
"I don't know what that is."
I never saw it because they rejected the cover.
Oh, okay.
Can you send us a digital image of
that?
They actually rejected one of your covers. Seriously?
They said it's nice, but it's not a J.G. Jones.
Oh wow! That's some balls to come back to you and say that.
Now, please tell me it was like Ahsoka and Boba Fett on the cover, because these guys would just go, "I'll buy it off you immediately." Just tell me the characters and
It was Darth. It was Darth.
Okay.
Okay.
We can live with Darth, but I mean, if it was we like Darth, but I mean, if you hit Mike's girl crush on Ahsoka, it's like his free pass with his wife.
With an alien with things coming off her head. Yeah.
I did paint a little Star Wars book a few years ago, a little hardback book. That was a lot of fun.
Ooh, okay. Tell us. We'll pull up the cover because.
What is that?
Yeah, because I don't know if I have it.
That to the library he goes.
It feels like one of those little hit the rooms. They disappear and get bigger.
Yeah.
The TARDIS.
Oh, I remember that. Oh my gosh, that's yours. I didn't know that. See what I mean?
It was tons of fun.
I remember seeing that. I would not have. I mean, it wouldn't have even occurred to me that was a cover you'd done.
Yeah, I think my most fun painting in here was this little story. You can see that.
Oh wow,
that I've never seen.
So there's illustrations throughout it.
Yeah. The gang is sort of buskers running around the universe trying to earn a few dimes,
That's all. We're going, crap. We always find something Star Wars related when we do the show. No.
Yeah, it almost seems impossible to stay away from it. There's so much of it out there. If you've been in the business long enough, you're bound to have overlapped with it at some point.
Oh yeah, and I'm old enough that I remember going to see it at the theaters the first time. And begged them to let me have that poster as soon as the movie closed. I had that original film poster for years and years and years, and I gave it to this buddy of mine for a wedding gift, and then we had a big falling out. And
oh man, you're like, can I have my poster back?
Oh well.
So
it happens.
You said you started. Did you actually end up doing covers though that were Procreate or more digital? Because I do feel like with your like this has elements of more of that Procreate, though it's still you. Just bringing in more of that digital feel. I don't know if it is. I'm just asking.
I'm not really competent enough to just anything I do digitally. I'm very slow because I don't know the tools well enough. I like to sketch with it because I can do color things really quick. But I'm just so used to painting. I've been painting since I was 12 years old. And to just pick up a brush is so much easier for me. I can get it straight out of my head and onto the page without looking around through that little file of brushes and
where's my brush?
dialing my color up. I just mix my color on my palette. And I actually wish I were better at it because I really love the look of a lot of it. But at the same time, there's something about paint to me. Right after I got out of the hospital, we opened up the front room of the next room in my house here is now my oil painting studio. So I can't say what it is yet, but I just oil painted my first cover in a long time. So
that was going to be my next question was, what are you up to?
Up there soon.
Nice.
Okay, because we have noticed there, since you were sick or whatever, you've done less and less, like not quite as many covers, but the ones you do, I mean, because we're collectors, we speculate, we do all these different things. You have some covers that are hard to find, and they're gorgeous covers. One being this one here. And we just and it doesn't, and part of it's like it doesn't feel like a JG cover, but it is like it's such a gorgeous cover, and this is a hard book to find.
Yeah, I like to keep everybody guessing. I like to mix it up.
You did the Batgirl one too, I think, right? On the motorcycle.
Yeah. That was so much fun.
That's a really great. That's another really hard one to find too.
So I mean, we love your covers, and sometimes it's like, oh crap, and then I'm a Spider-Man guy, so I was so excited to see this one, and I think you did a couple for the Superior Spider-Man and for Spider-Man 2099 or whatever. Well, you did a bunch of this 2099, didn't you? Like the first 3 or 4, or
I did 3, I think, something like that.
There were a couple.
Did reintroduce.
Yeah. But yeah, this is just such a powerful cover, and you bring in a little bit of this. It reminds me of trying to do that close-up feel, like the same sort of attitude, but just more powerful. I guess
that great costume design for me. That's what got
I like the texture that shows on that one. Yeah, like I feel like I could feel the uniform, like just the
I wanted that texture,
Yeah. Oh yeah. You can definitely just the detail that you went into to adding those little divots into the suits, and then make it shiny where it's shiny. Like the arms remind me of her, but then the details of the mask and everything, and I'm just like, wow.
Well,
I grabbed the back roll.
It gets me off about doing a cover,
and we mentioned the Batgirl, and there it is.
Oh yeah.
Which, I mean, this does not feel.
No, I wouldn't have. Right away, I wouldn't have pointed to you as the artist on that until I saw the signature down in the bottom. But it's an amazing cover, very sought after.
They're all, it's like I said, it's just fun to do different things and try doing them in different ways for me.
So was that watercolor as well, or was that acrylic, or?
I did not do the color on that. I just did that one black and white.
Okay, so
maybe white.
That one feels more like pencil ink.
Okay, well that makes sense then for the look.
Because you definitely, when you paint your covers, it has a distinct look to it. That, I mean, this is of course an iconic, but like knowing that, okay, you did the pencils for it and the ink, okay, that makes more sense now. When I'm looking, I'm like, okay, I see your style, but not quite the same.
Usually, when I'm painting, the lighting is very dramatic.
Mm-hmm.
I always loved this one, this Vixen cover that you did. Fantastic. I just love the shadow and just the look off into the distance.
Like
the lion too.
Yeah, the lion is awesome.
And the heron hanging out just behind her. Just
hanging out.
Yeah, this is one that Pete's pulled out and used it in some of our other shows. We used to like treat 3 Comic Money where we share our favorite covers, and this is one of the ones he pulled out. I don't even remember what the theme was supposed
I
to
don't
be.
remember what the topic was, but I was like, no, I'm using it.
He's like, I love this cover. So,
are we at that part in the show? Can you show mine? Can you show my what I've used? You got my red Sony up there.
Oh yeah, where is it?
You showed it before the show started.
So many. So of course, we all know that Mike's a giant Red Sonja fan. So he would love to hear the story of how.
Yes, please.
I can tell you the story of this cover pretty easily.
Great. Cool.
When I moved to Philadelphia, well, I've known Nick at Dynamite most of my career, but I live in Philadelphia now, and Nick lives right across the river.
Hey,
so
I'm over in Jersey. I'm down right near Philly.
I'd see him. He grew up here in town, so I'd see him now and again. This was just a piece of colored paper that I was trying to see if I could make gouache work on it. So it was just something for me. I was sitting noodling around, seeing if I could make color work on colored paper. And Nick saw it, and his eyes just like fell out of his head. It's like, I gotta have it, JG. Can I put it on the cover? Sure, knock yourself out, boss.
So was what color was the paper originally?
It's sort of that bluish gray that's on top of the rock there.
Okay.
You see the highlights. So everything else is just pushing it higher or lower key in the values.
You don't still own that piece of art by any chance, do you?
I sold a long time ago.
Damn.
Did
you try that again on other pieces? Did you end up liking using colored paper with the gouache?
Yeah, I still do it from time to time. It's kind of an old painter's technique, especially oil painting, using a colored ground. Or a tone, just a middle value. So you push your highlights higher and your darks darker off of that middle tone.
Yeah. I've seen people like do I dabbled. I'm not anywhere, but like seeing from the standpoint of when you oil paint, just taking that, pushing the darks one way and figuring out where it all goes, and then you paint on top of it. Like you just start washing and that thing. So I've seen and played with that, and I love that aspect of painting the building and taking the darks and then bringing out the color and the highlights, and just those highlights are so much more powerful on the dark side and all that.
Or even starting with 2 gessos before you do anything, like a dark gesso at the horizon and down, and then a light gesso up, and then kind of working if it's a landscape or something like that, and then pushing your characters or your buildings or whatever forward off of that and giving it real depth.
I only know what you're talking about because of Bob Ross. I watch a lot of Bob Ross to go to bed.
Well, yeah, I mean, he does that. Yeah, he does do that. That's true. I didn't even think of that. That's true. He does do that.
You're going to show us a happy tree? No, bobblehead.
Oh, nice.
Bobble Bob.
Yeah, Uncle Bob.
I should have worn my Bob Ross t-shirt.
That's
awesome.
Relaxation for me. A beer and some Bob Ross,
So soothing. I love it.
Put you right to sleep, man. I love it. It's great.
Like a baby.
Sometimes it keeps me up because I want to see him finish.
I know, me too. Well, I don't want to see him finish. I don't want to see that last 5 minutes where he throws the extra thing in because he's got more time. That always drives me nuts. Like, stop! Please stop, Bob. You're done. It's beautiful. Let's just talk to us. Show us your squirrel.
It didn't need the
Show us your squirrel.
And it puts a tree and then covers up all the work.
Oh man! Like, come on.
Something about just the sound of that big brush scraping on that surface.
Yeah.
It's like, that's nice.
I miss it. My grandfather was an oil painter, and I would go to his house all the time, and he down in his basement. So I'd go down there, and the smells of everything. I can still remember it. And there was Bob Ross on the TV, and I'd be watching that, and he'd be painting in the other room, and I have that still sort of like in my nostrils, and that's like 30, 40 years ago now. So
you might want to pick your nose and get that out of there. No.
Yeah. No, not at all. I want it there forever.
My new paintings, though, I've had to train myself to paint without any of the chemicals, which is tricky. So I love that smell all my life of the turpentine and the oil. So I know it's better for my health, post-cancer, but I do miss all that heavy odor of the oil painting studio.
Yeah. My mom used to use oil of clove as well. So there was that smell going on all the time too. There's a lot of artists in my family. So, and I love that. Yeah. You must miss that. But you still get to work at least. At least there's some things now that are chemical free that do the same job, which is great.
Yeah. I got rid of all like my cadmium colors and stuff and got replacements, and I'm using like walnut oils and stuff like that they don't really have a lot of odor, but if you use them right, you can get the same kind of techniques.
Okay.
It's fun.
Okay. That's sorry. Someone's like, I'm so fascinated. I'm like, I want to go play with some walnut oil paint just to see and compare. Because like I'm sure going, but my tube of paint is like 6 years old. It might not even be paint anymore. It might be just a red block that add some. Get out some Crisco and see if it get it to work again.
I've done some. I will never show you, JG, ever. Chris and Pete, I'll show you guys. You can make fun of me on the side. Not a chance, man. Not a chance.
So JG, I know you say you have something in the other room you can't show us, but like, what have you been working on here lately? Because like when we tried to pull up your stuff, we're like, okay, fanzine and comics behind and all those things are not great for showing most recent stuff. So just so we know, so we can throw in some great covers that you're working on now or that you've got coming out or whatever.
Let's see. I've been doing some covers here and there. I have a Berserker cover that should be dropping pretty soon. It's somewhere.
Is it for issue 1 or is it for?
No, that's the thing. I think most of the issue 1 covers have been dropped. I think it was, if I remember the script right, it was the 2nd or 3rd.
So is it Keanu? Like, I mean, everyone's
yeah, go on.
I would love for it to be a Berserker. Well, no, I know it wouldn't sell, but it would just like, instead it's like a cat. It's the Berserker cover and it's just a picture of a cat or something like, and just go, everyone else is doing Keanu, so I just went the other way. Or I did, was it Theodore Logan instead of.
There you go.
Yeah, like this issue came out not that long ago, but this was a hidden gem, so I'm assuming this was old art. This Black Widow, did they reuse? That's what I kind of figured because they called it the hidden gem cover. I'm like, oh, so that's new.
It's an old cover that I'd done years ago. The main thing I'm working on right now is not really covers. I don't know if you keep up with any of my social media stuff, but for the past few months, I have been dropping some stuff from a graphic novel that I'm working on. And I got a call from a publisher recently that said, is anybody publishing this? I said, well, we can talk. So I think I've just about got a deal in place that's going to keep me busy for the next couple of years.
Nice.
Painting that book.
That's great.
And it's something that I worked on with a friend of mine about 15 years ago. We started. And when I got out of the hospital, I was like, I'm not going to sit on this stuff anymore. I'm just going to do it. It's one of those things, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. And you get busy with the next job and the next phone call and the next job and the next job. But I don't want to run out of time. I've got stuff I want to do.
Yeah.
So I'm doing a lot of my own work in addition to working on covers as well.
That's good. I can't wait to see the passion of that in my hand at some point. That's awesome.
So, you said your Instagram, so I just went and pulled an image. Is this one of them from the book that you're working on?
No, that's another of my little project. I've been doing Lord of the Rings watercolors kind of for myself in my own spare time.
Nice.
So now I got to go back through and go where. Okay, now I see that you got like several Lord of the Rings inspired pieces.
Another one of my favorite things in the world. Lord of the Rings.
Yeah. There's a Death of Theoden in there, I believe.
You got the spider. That's my favorite right there.
Yeah, there's a lot
Shelob.
of for paintings I haven't done yet.
I was going to say Aragog. I was like, no, that's Harry Potter. It's Shelob.
Shelob. Yep. I can geek out about that all night. We'll do a second podcast about Lord of the Rings.
I'll show up for it.
I'm an English teacher, so I mean I love it. That's even when I hated all other books, I still loved Lord of the Rings.
Yeah,
and
one of those books I read regularly. Every few years, I read it again.
Yeah, they're dense. That is not a fast read. Even when you reread it, it's definitely an immersive experience, which is what's great about it.
And I always find more stuff. Those old Hildebrandt calendars when I was a kid just sort of, it lit my little, 15-year-old brain on fire. And I always wanted to illustrate that book. In fact, when I became a little bit proficient in watercolor, the first art that I ever sold was Lord of the Rings paintings at a little small gallery in Baton Rouge. I have no idea what happened.
Wait, how did you end up in a gallery in Baton Rouge? You've been in New York and Philly, New Jersey.
And Philly.
Chris's brain just exploded.
Just getting out of Louisiana.
It's called transportation, Chris.
It doesn't exist. I mean, I have been in the same place all my life. Come on now.
A big, huge part of going to New York for me was Spider-Man comics as a kid. Seriously. It was.
Would you try to go to Empire State University and then realize it didn't exist?
My comic book artist was Ross Andrew. Basically, when I was a kid, I was transitioned in from the crew that was working on it before, Ramita and those guys. But I would look at those Ross Andrew pages, and you could follow Spider-Man through the city. He had obviously worked from reference because all the locations and everything he'd shot with a camera. And I was like, I'm going to live there one day. I'm going to be like Peter Parker. I'm going to run around Manhattan. So, yeah.
I'm trying to think of why I moved there. I've moved to Manhattan 3 times, lived there 3 times in my life. It was not because of Spider-Man, but I don't remember what it was from.
So I want to try one more time on Instagram because I just want to see if this is it.
Yes.
Okay, I found it.
It's my new top secret project.
It's top secret that's on your Instagram. So
the working title is Dust to Dust, and it's set in the Dust Bowl in the 1930s.
Okay. Oh, I definitely see that now that you give it a title. I'm like, oh,
Grapes of Wrath, kind of.
Yep.
Yeah, Grapes of Wrath. Steinbeck, another.
Yep.
So are you sticking to sepia tone and those colors, or are you going to actually bring?
The whole book is sepia.
Okay,
nice.
I just thought it felt right for the theme. It's not only the Dust Bowl and everything. It's like it gives it that feel.
Yeah.
That situation, but also it's like an old movie as well from the era. It's not black and white, but it's sepia. So it gives it that sort of aged photograph.
Yeah, it definitely gives a vibe. Just immediately looking at the art brings you to a different place.
And if this is one page, I can see why this is going to take you 2 or 3 years to do, because this is amazing detail in this one page of not 10 panels. I mean, wow.
How long does something like that take you? Like a page like that, fully rendered in its final stage?
A couple days.
Yeah. I can see why that was a couple years.
I tried to get all of my research done. Like I'll design the page, and then I have files and files and files of old pictures here and reference material. Like one of my best things for reference is the old Sears catalog, because it's every freaking thing. If you want to know something from the time period, you just pull out the old Sears catalog, and there it is.
I love pulling out those old National Geographics for the ads. When you pull out the Cadillacs are in there, and the flapper outfits, and you're like, this is what I want to learn how to draw. That I love the style of it. So,
growing up in Louisiana, my dad was always a gearhead, and he loved old cars. So he always had me back in the yard wet sanding some old Model A or something. He was going to repaint and redo. You know? And I guess about 15 years ago, after he retired and was kind of kicking around, and I'd made a little money off some book or other, I went and bought him a Model A that was just in pristine condition, so he'd have something to play with. Yeah.
Is it still in pristine condition? I guess would be the question then, or is it, or did he make it less than pristine?
And he can't really do that kind of work anymore. Some health problems, so he actually sold it to the auto dealership in the town where he lives, and it's right there on the dealership floor. So every time I go see my dad, I drive by and see the old car. Yeah,
it's cool.
Awesome.
That's really so. JG, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, sure.
I love
Rings thing too, right?
Yeah. I'm in.
I'm like, well, especially because the show's about to come out next year or this summer, the Amazon's Lord of the Rings thing.
Yeah.
So we might actually be emailing you going, hey, you want to come and talk? Let's talk Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, absolutely.
Please, let's do that. Even if we don't record it, let's just talk Lord of the Rings. I don't really care if it's on tape or not.
We'll go in the painting studio and I'll paint like Bob Ross while we talk about Lord of the Rings.
Well,
dude, will you do that?
Yeah.
We need to rig one of those cameras. I see a lot of that times where you have it. It's not you anymore. It's just you drawing and just talking as you do. And sometimes it's so fascinating. But we've all clicked on Instagram and watched guys just show what they do. Or freaking Perillo sits there and it's not even him painting. He just pours the freaking whatever stuff on his painting and then pushes it around. I'm like, you made it shiny. Now it's amazing. I don't know what shiny does, but
you put the varnish on, it brings out all the depth of that color.
That's like his only thing he ever Instagram. Like you see his paintings and then you see that, and I'm like, what? Okay, but now I'm sold. Now I'm going to buy that cover whenever it comes out because he freaking showed me that you made it glossy.
Yeah,
but I would love to do a show with you just doing that. We're just chatting while you're doing stuff on the side. Would be amazing. That'd be so much fun. Bob Ross would be to try to mess you up. I'll bring my squirrel.
Absolutely, we have a little squirrel that comes by for nuts every day. So just invite him in.
I just want to see you paint and see like Mike scream, and all of a sudden the line curls, and like, oh yeah, Mike messed up that. I'm buying that cover because Mike's line messed it up.
That's the stuff, man. Though that's the stuff. That's why I do this show. That's what I want. I don't care if anybody watches it, but me. They don't. It's great. It's been great to talk to you. It really, really has. Thank you so very much for your time.
Guys, I really appreciate you putting up with my nonsense. It's been fun.
No, we love stories. We love talking books and talking stuff.
Yeah, art. I love learning about art and how artists work. It's
just
fascinating me.
Me too. Thank you.
I hope I can keep doing it for a few more years.
I hope so. I'm looking forward to seeing all that new stuff come out. That'd be great. I'm looking forward to that graphic novel especially.
Thanks a lot. Maybe you'll help push it a little bit for me when it comes out.
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
Yeah, we have made every interview we've done. We've made them money just strictly because we spent the money, whether or not anyone else.
Yeah, you've at least sold 3 copies already. I mean, so there you go.
It's going to the comic shop, man. It's just It's been 2 years for me.
Oh,
I was in lockdown for the first year after transplant, and I was just getting back out in the world. Like, boom.
So that it was the quarantine was not bad when no one was buying or selling, no stores were open. But when stores started opening, you start going, I got to get out. I got to hit the store. And then I think like I've made this giant order at my comic shop of books I didn't want, strictly because I wanted to shop. But yes, thank you so much for joining us. And
it's a pleasure. Thanks.
Thank you.
Once again, guys, this is CBSI. This is comicbookinvest.com. This is the comic contributor chat. I'm going to learn how to say the freaking title I made up for the show. But thank you so much for joining us. And we'll see you next time.